Yeah, well, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that...
you just say I should die?
You should not.
No.
There is a line that was crossed there, and it's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to us at this network.
CNN kicked off and banned a panelist on one of their shows after the panelist, Ryan Girdusky, made a vile and racist remark directed towards journalist Mehdi Hasan. So I'm going to get to this clip as well as the statement from CNN host Abby Phillip afterward, as well as the statement from CNN. And I'm also going to get to a breakdown later from somebody who used to book these sorts of shows and an experience or a problem he kept running into when trying to book these shows. It's very interesting, so wait for that. But here is the clip. So this is clearly vile, disgusting. In case you've been locked in a cave for a few months, I'll give you some more context as to what the implication here is. But here is the exchange between conservative Ryan Girdusky, who I'll get to more on him as well, and his reaction after he was banned, and Mehdi Hasan on this panel show.
I get it. Nobody wants to be called Nazis. It's very inflammatory. But if you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
You've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people will sit there and... No, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, well, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that...
you just say I should die?
You should not.
No.
Did you just say I should be killed?
No, I did not say that. No, I did not say that.
Hold on.
Did your guest just say I should be killed on live TV?
I said I hope
Guys,
you don't...
let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper doesn't go off.
Because you said I'm a big supporter
of the Palestinians.
Of Hamas?
Guys, let me
said
stop.
Palestinians.
Are you?
Am I what? No, of course I'm not.
Palestinians are not.
I apologize.
Are you a racist, violent person inciting violence against
Ryan,
me?
That's disgusting.
That is completely...
No, I apologize.
That
Good
is
job, CNN.
completely
Let's have first
out
block
of
say the
pocket.
Muslim guy
You
should
know
be
that.
blown
I
up
apologize.
on
I
TV.
apologize.
Don't say then I
Wow.
apologize. You literally...
I thought you said
accused
Hamas.
him-
I
You didn't think I said
No.
Hamas.
Yes,
I
you
said
did.
I'm supportive of
Yes, I did.
Palestinian
Yes, I
rights.
did.
Why? Because when you hear
What's funny
Palestinian,
is
you
Rudy
hear Hamas.
Giuliani said this
No,
yesterday,
because-
so you're a great guest to
Listen.
be here
All
to
right,
defend
I
Rudy
told
Giuliani's
myself
Give me
I
one-
wasn't going to
give me-
entertain
give me one
nonsense
second.
today, and so at this point,
This is what we're in
I
now.
can't
This
do
is America in
Here's
2024.
what I will say.
Racist conservative clown Ryan Girdusky stunned there to discover that he is not on Twitter, but in fact on live national television, where his racism isn't celebrated the way it is on Elon Musk's platform. So the reference there is, of course, referencing Israel's targeting of Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon. So basically implying that Mehdi Hasan is a terrorist. So in case you're having trouble understanding why this is so vile, Zed Jalani here really helps to put it into perspective. What if Mehdi Hasan was in an argument with a Jewish guy and said something like, I hope your music festivals are safe. Right-wingers in America have such a hard time identifying threats against Muslims at this point that you have to make an analogy so that they get it. This is true. The sort of hatred thrown at Muslims is so constant and normalized that people are often surprised when there's a reaction, or that in this case, someone's actually banned from television. I mean, I'm going to get to the kinds of lies that have been spread about Rashida Tlaib, for example, by actual CNN hosts that have gone completely unnoticed, or at least there's been no repercussions for any of that. That's been ongoing. And I'll get to an example of that later on, because I covered it, I think it was last month. But this sort of stuff has been normalized, especially over the past year. And we're stunned to discover when it's as clear as it was on this CNN panel. Now, Ryan Girdusky is a well-known J.D. Vance associate. So as James Singer here tweets out, Project 2025 Advisory Group America Moment. Their leadership group includes Ryan Girdusky and J.D. Vance. He also, I'm not going to play this Newsmax clip, but he also is quoted here saying in 2020, he reached out to me over Twitter, speaking of J.D. Vance, and we built a friendship. I called him and said, if you're running, I want to be on the team. So he apparently worked with his super PAC. This is the kind of racist trash that is at the top of the Republican food chain. So here is his statement after he was banned. I'll get to CNN banning him. But he said here, you can stay on CNN if you falsely call every Republican a Nazi and have taken money from Qatar-funded media. Apparently you can't go on CNN if you make a joke. I'm glad America gets to see what CNN stands for. It was just a joke. Does this sound familiar? In this case, you have someone here who is definitely not a comedian. And let's just go to his reaction again. after he said what he said and was called out.
No, of course I'm not
Palestinians
saying
are
that.
not.
Then I apologize.
Are you a
Ryan.
Then I
racist,
apologize.
violent person
Then I
inciting
apologize.
violence against
Ryan,
people?
Ryan.
That's
That is
disgusting.
completely.
Then I apologize.
Good
that
job,
is
CNN. Let's
completely
have first
out
block
of
say the
pocket.
Muslim guy
You
should
know
be
that.
blown
Then I
up
apologize.
on
Then I
TV.
apologize.
This was supposed to be a joke. you know the jokes you tell when you're just like, I'm sorry, please let me back on, please let me back on, I'm sorry. Yeah, great. Fantastic joke. You fucking loser. All right, let's get to CNN's banning of him. So this was refreshing to see. Finally, this garbage is recognized, and it had to be, as overt as this, but still, this is progress. CNN's Abby Phillips here reacting, kicking him off, and then I'll get to CNN's statement after.
We're back here, and before we get started, I want to just address what happened in the last segment. And first, I want to apologize to Mehdi Hasan for what was said at this table. It was completely unacceptable. When we get this discussion started, you'll see that Ryan is not at the table. There is a line that was crossed there, and it's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to us at this network. We want discussion. We want people who disagree with each other to talk to each other. But when you cross the line of a complete lack of civility, that is not going to happen here on this show. It's a heated time. We're in the middle of a political season. We are 8 days from a presidential election. But we can have conversations about what is happening in this country without resorting to the lowest of the lowest kind of discourse. Want to address that, and I want to apologize to the viewers at home because we want to be able to hear each other, we want to be able to talk to each other, and we plan to do that in this next segment.
Credit where it's due. Solid apology there from Abby Phillip of CNN. I'll get to CNN and their entire or their banning of Ryan, whatever his name is, Ryan Girdusky in a second. But it's amazing this conversation, this whole panel conversation, was around discussing the vile remarks made at Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden. And in the process of that, the guy on the panel who's supposed to be defending Trump made even more racist, vile remarks. It goes to show you, in case there's any confusion here, this is what the party is. This is the leadership of the party. These are the people that work in the party. They are disgusting, racist, xenophobic bigots. This is the party. And they wonder why they're being called Nazis. So this is the statement from CNN saying, so this was shared by Aidan McLaughlin of Mediaite. CNN saying there is zero room for racism or bigotry at CNN on our air. We aim to foster thoughtful conversations and debate, including between people who profoundly disagree with each other, in order to explore important issues and promote mutual understanding. But we will not allow guests to be demeaned or for the line of civility to be crossed. Ryan Girdusky will not be welcomed back at our network. Good to see. Now, I just got to acknowledge this. Rashida Tlaib tweeting this out. Saying CNN has played a central role in normalizing this kind of open anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, and anti-Palestinian hate, and it's sadly totally unsurprising to see such disgusting statements aired so casually on its network now. Just a reminder, I covered this story, this is a month ago. CNN caught fabricating a quote to smear Rashida Tlaib and criticize Governor Whitmer. And I don't make up things in my headlines. That's what happened. Go, in case you missed that story, go watch that video. They fabricated a quote that Rashida Tlaib did not say. And these are CNN hosts. So just to give you an idea as to what Rashida Tlaib is talking about here, this is a culture at CNN where they allow this kind of garbage to be spewed. Obviously not in the way that we just saw, as directly as we just saw. They do have a line apparently. But fostering that kind of environment where, you fabricate quotes about Rashida Tlaib, it gives you an idea of why guests like that are even able to make it on air to begin with. Now, I want to get to this story or this experience from Matthew Sheffield. This is somebody who used to book panel shows. So I'll link to he has a full article explaining it, but he also tweeted it out beforehand. So I'll get to some of the tweets so I could jump around here a bit. But he goes to explain here. So before going independent, I used to be a producer on The Hill on its Rising program, which I've covered a few times in the past. Like all mainstream media shows, we were constantly trying to have balanced panel discussions, but we always had a problem. It was very difficult to find Republicans who weren't crazy. I have thought about this before. Just like knowing what the Republican Party is and knowing what these shows like on CNN, what they try to do, how hard it must be for them to find conservatives who aren't going to just lash out with racist trash like we just saw there. He goes on to write, frequently my colleagues would book right-wing commentators, and as someone who'd come out of conservative media, I often had to review them before they were put on air. More than a few times, people who were alt-right activists were booked before I removed them. Other times, we couldn't find anyone who actually was qualified to talk about the news of the day in a non-frothing manner. We had people offered who had made racist remarks, people who had stalked women, etc. The Republican media, meanwhile, make zero attempts at balance. The biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action in media are Republican commentators. The mainstream media are desperate to find any who can engage in civil dialogue without filibustering or collapsing into bigoted rants. This is why you often see the same Republicans everywhere. The mainstream media needs to stop platforming dishonest and bigoted Republicans. America needs to hear what the far right thinks, but we don't need to hear their bigotry and trolling. Reporters can present these views and their significance. We don't need the bigots. This is a great point. I have more to get to here, but this is a great point where you don't need to have these clowns on your panel shows to be able to represent what they are. Like, you don't, by having them on your show, by inviting them on and allowing them to speak, you are normalizing their behavior and their views, as opposed to reporting on what they're saying and doing it in a way that showcases how vile and disgusting it is. That is how these people should be treated. You shouldn't treat them as, just a normal part of a conversation. Until CNN and other outlets return to regular standards, they're going to keep having their right-wing commentators engage in self-destructive acts. Remember the imploding of Jeffrey Lord, Ed Martin, and Corey Lewandowski? These were all CNN contributors. Ed Martin I completely forgot about, but Jeffrey Lord was around the Trump era, and he ended up tweeting out something vile at somebody, and then so he was kicked off, and then he was replaced by Ed Martin, who then complained about black racists on CNN, so that he was pushed out. Like, all these people are insane. And then Corey Lewandowski worked for Trump. He's just a lunatic. Like, it's finding a quote-unquote normal Republican is impossible because they don't exist. If you are still a Republican supporting Trump, you're not okay. There is something broken inside of you. You are a bad person. You are a bigot. You are a racist. If you are at the level where you are part of the party and you are supporting Trump, you have to be that because that's what the party is. So, as he writes here, these people keep horribly trashing the CNN brand. CNN's Republican chief executives clearly are behind these recent Republican affirmative action hires. They suppose that having more right-wing droogs on the air will get Republicans to flip away from Fox, but this will never work. For every Fox spot tuning in, they lose 2 disgusted viewers. And just closing the loop on Ryan Girdusky, he's a full-on racist and radical Christian supremacist who has written for racist activist Richard Spencer. He also he has been running an operation to block Black and LGBT authors from school curricula. He should have never been on CNN. And last one here. The irrational both sides fetish has created a dynamic where it is more controversial to call a fascist than it is for Republican politicians to praise Hitler like Trump and Mark Robinson do. Calling a Nazi is more controversial than being an actual Nazi. This is just the reality. Think of how offended these people, like you just saw in that clip, how offended Ryan Girdusky got at the idea that any of them are Nazis. And like that, there's more offense taken at that than the actual disgusting garbage they spew on a regular basis. That clip on CNN was just one example where there was actually finally some accountability. There usually isn't accountability. If you saw that rally at MSG, guest after guest, it wasn't just the comedian who was trying to make jokes that were falling flat. Every guest was spewing disgusting hatred garbage. So this is just what the party is. If you want to represent the Republican view, you don't need to bring them on and normalize the garbage they are saying by acting like it's just one perspective of a conversation. No, you have to properly place their disgusting garbage in the box that it should be in. If you normalize this, you allow the rise of Trump, which already happened. You allow these people to take positions of power because it becomes normalized. It becomes something that a lot more people feel free to engage in, which I feel like we're seeing a lot more this time around than in 2016 and even 2020. People that are just openly in support of Trump in terms of, whether it's athletes, whether it's certain celebrities. They're just willing to be more open about their support of Trump in a way that they weren't before because it's been normalized in a way that it wasn't before he took power.